Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I will explain my article. The title is Racial Discriminations Affect Students' Behaviorisms in Freedom Writers Movie, a Sociological Approach. The first is the abstract. In this article, presents a care of sociological approach. This study examines racial discriminations that affects the student behaviorism in school of students in Freedom Writers Movie. The consequences of racializations and racial discriminations against students in many schools and classrooms are reflected in the degree of their socialization in the academic community, which ultimately affects their behavior. In addition, racial centrality was a both risk factor for experiencing discrimination and a protective factor in buffering the negative impact of discriminations on sociological distress. The results of this article are discussed within the context of identifying multiple pathways to sociological well-being for African American young adults within the context of racial discriminations. And the keywords of my article is racial discriminations, behavior, and sociological. The next is introductions. Racial discriminations, defined as unfair differential treatment on the basis of race, is a relatively common occurrence for racial discrimination, racial minorities in the United States, particularly for African Americans. The Freedom Writers Movie focuses on Erin and her multicultural students and constantly finds the use of race as a basis for racial discriminations. Early conclusions about each other are always made by Erin and her students, who don't know each other very well, even though they don't have facts to support their views. In the movie, Nurul is one of the teachers who in her class can break a racist and a discrimination issues. She will make students realize that they are actually the same, regardless their color. There are a lot of racial problems when Crowell comes to class, when students only associate with the same black people who dislike white people, and they still think that white people are better and inferior. The next is findings and discussions. There are several findings that I found in the Freedom Writers Movie. The first is the negative attitudes. There are first cognitive component. The example is yeah, and that's some bullshit. It is the dumb class. The second is behavioral component. The example is the students are discussing and laughing because of a picture from Tito. The third is evaluation component. The example is just leave it alone. The second findings is race. Prejudice is a form of everyday racism. Everyday racism is a verbal, physical, or mental attacks to the other race, such as assuming lack confidence. According to Tyson 2006, race discrimination based on race, including generalizations of physical traits and activities. Since freedom writers focuses on Erin and her multicultural students, the use of race as basis of discrimination can be found frequently. Erin and her students, who don't know each other very well, often make early assumptions about each other even when they don't have proof to support their opinions. There is the first example of the racial discrimination findings in the movies. In Erin's class, the following dialogue class occur. Erin said, "Alright, you know what? I want you all to move to the side of the room. You in the back up here, Cindy, and all of you move to the back. Come on, let's go now." And then Jamal said, "Get your ass back to China, all of y'all." A Cambodian student said, "You are all little midget ass punks. Move before I stomp your peanuts." The third findings is language. Language is, however, sometimes used as a source for discriminations. All of the characters of freedom writers speak the same language. There is no major change in the characters which are used when they use English in their everyday conversations. Therefore, in the movie there is an absence of language discriminations. By using the language, they often say hate speech to teachers who have different creeds, even though the language used is the same. The fourth findings is behavior. Mrs. Erin Gruwell comes to Woodrow Wilson High School due to the first time to meet her students. They don't give respects to her because she is a white woman. They hate white people because white people always oppress them in their lives. Gruwell is very shocked and surprised of those facts in the classroom. The students' behavior at classroom of Woodrow Wilson High School is very cruel and brutal with their behavior for their teacher. The last is conclusions. It can be concluded as follows based on the analysis of the findings and discussions. The first is the problem of Gruwell faces in the classroom is the bad way of her students are behaving. Their teachers is not respected by them. Since Erin is a white woman, they dislike her. They had their friends from other cultures or racial group as well. And the second is due to white supremacy at the point that bad manners of the students surface in their stay. As the majority race in the United States at the time, the white people didn't handle the minorities wisely. They don't communicate well with the minority themselves. They hate one another. Gruwell's approach to the U.S. social problems is a strong lesson for the young generations of the United States. Multiculturalism can be of a high consistency for teachers. Through this, the teacher will teach, train, and lead the student into the right behavior. That's it for my article and explanation. Thank you so much for your attention. If I do any mistake, I do apologize. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.